Now to the investigation into the Uvalde, Texas school shooting. Calls are growing for the 77-minute video from a single hallway camera inside Robb Elementary School to be released. A recent article in the Austin American-Statesman discusses the heated debate over whether or not the release would impact the ongoing probe into the deadly shooting and the police response. Investigative reporter Tony Plohetski wrote that piece, and he's joining us now to talk a little bit more about it. So you were actually able to view this video. What can you tell us about it? What does it show?
I think it is as haunting as people probably imagine. It does show numerous law enforcement officers in the hallway of Robb Elementary School for more than an hour, an excruciating time period. And what you see in the video is officers who are heavily armed. They have assault rifles. They have ballistic shields. At one point, you even see tear gas canisters being brought into the school. And so the contents of the video absolutely deepens questions about the overall response and why those officers did not act sooner to go into that classroom and stop the gunman. It is incredibly wrenching to watch. And I think once it is made public, it is going to certainly intensify the grief and the pain that the entire shooting has caused.
So, Tony, who's arguing against the release of this video and why?
So as it stood over the weekend, the main person who apparently does not want this video released is the Uvalde County District Attorney. But Vlad, there is increasing friction between her and the Texas Department of Public Safety because the Texas DPS, which is the lead investigating agency, has actually said publicly in a letter that we obtained over the weekend that they do not object to the video being released, that they believe that it would create more transparency in this investigation. And this is key, that they do not believe that it would impede the investigation in any sort of way. So there is just really a lot of disclarity at this point about why the Uvalde DA is asking that it not be released. DPS is saying that it is deferring to her judgment about whether or not to release it. But in addition to DPS saying they think it should be released, we are also hearing from a key lawmaker here in Texas, the one who's chairing a House committee doing a separate investigation into what happened that awful day. And he has also said that he believes the video should be made public right now.
Okay, so then I got to ask you, where's the debate? If the Department of Public Safety believes it has the authority to release this video and wants to, why hasn't the video been released already?
Again, they are deferring to the Uvalde County District Attorney because they say that she is the one, and this is true, who will have the ultimate authority about whether or not anyone from this whole set of circumstance is investigated and prosecuted. But here's what's also similarly confusing about that. As we well know at this point, the gunman was killed that day. And so what DPS is essentially saying is what investigation, what possible criminal prosecution could happen in the future. And so there's no answer to that. So again, just a lot of really confusing information coming from all different sides in this issue. And again, really, I think prolonging the pain and intensifying the anguish for the people of Uvalde and the parents of those 19 children.
So, Tony, when you were watching the video, how long were police inside the hallway of the school? I mean, an approximate time that you were able to discern.
So the gunman entered the school at 11:33 in the morning, unobstructed. He walked down the hallway carrying the AR-15. He turned to the right where the classroom that he opened fire was. He did open fire. You hear a hail of gunfire. About 2.5 minutes later, we see the first responding officers from the city of Uvalde, as well as the Uvalde School District Police Force, show up and move toward that classroom door. We then hear a rapid exchange of gunfire, and you can actually see the police officers get blown back. They run back. One of them actually touches his head to check for blood. There was no blood. But then, unfortunately, after that, you really don't see any momentum about what to do next. There seems to be no collaboration, no planning, no real active discussion about then how to move in on the gunman. And so tragically and devastatingly, for really about an hour after that, you see this growing number of law enforcement officers in that hallway. I hate to say it, but essentially almost standing around. They're talking, they're checking their cell phones at one point. Again, to see them in all of this armor and to know that those 19 children and 2 teachers, as well as some survivors, were inside that classroom as this was happening, it's really honestly very difficult to reconcile. But I do want to say that law enforcement has said that they were treating what was happening in the way that you would treat someone who had barricaded himself inside of a classroom, which calls for a slower, more methodical response, rather than what this ultimately was, which was an active shooter, which, according to law enforcement training, as we well know at this point, says that you must do something to act urgently, even if it means surrendering your own life.
And as you know, at least when it comes to the public conversation about what went wrong, there has been a lot of finger pointing and a lot of confusion as to who was actually in charge. And what has happened over the past several weeks is a lot of law enforcement has just shut down.
Right.
We're not getting answers at all. So this is why this latest development is very interesting, that Uvalde County Sheriff is going to testify before state lawmakers. He's going to answer questions. What can we expect to hear from him? You know, do we know what his role was on that day, how involved he was?
Well, here's what we can expect to hear from him. Nothing, unfortunately. His testimony today will be private. And so unless he decides on his own accord to make a public statement to the media, I don't think we're going to hear from him, excuse me, very much today. But in addition to that, it's also striking that we were hearing reports from the head of that House committee doing this investigation that as of last week, he was still declining to even testify. We know that he did have deputies on that scene in that school. But again, the head of that committee later saying in the week and into the weekend that the sheriff apparently had done an about face and was willing to testify. But again, unfortunately, we're not going to be privy to that testimony today.
All right, Tony Plohetski, thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.